Hello again, I'm Robert Fithen. Here we are doing that deep dive into 1983, rating and reviewing all of these albums in chronological order by original release date. And can you believe we're already in the month of March? And 3 albums were released on the 4th of March, 1983. Let's start with what I think is the best one, and that is Thin Lizzy, Thunder and Lightning. Now, I have every Thin Lizzy album on record except for this one. Just have the CD of this one. This didn't even really originally come out on CD in the US anyway in 1983. You had to wait a few years. I think this came out in the really late 80s or early 90s on Metal Blade Records. And the big question with this, is this supposed to sound like this? That's the question. This was Thin Lizzy's final album. Phil Lynott, unfortunately, would pass away just a few years later. But they went out with a pretty solid album content-wise. I think a lot of the songs absolutely smoke, especially that first song, the title track, Thunder and Lightning. That is just an absolute hard rocker right out of the gate. And the tracks that follow that are pretty well, too. They got a really nice groove on this more mellow track, though. Number 3, The Sun Goes Down. That just is really this kind of mood piece that just puts you in this, like, especially if you're like driving at night or something like that, kind of like this, you know, kind of gives you this vibe of just like nighttime and everything's kind of mellowed out and maybe something's about to happen. But yeah, there's that. They always do those great tracks like that where they mellow out, but it's definitely not, you know, like sleepy or whatever. I mean, it's still got that Thin Lizzy intensity just below the surface there. But yeah, just great stuff on here. Cold Sweat and Baby Please Don't Go, which is not a cover of the Them song, which AC/DC covered and a bunch of people covered. But that's not what that is. But yeah, there's good stuff on here, pretty much all the way through this. They went out with a pretty good album, especially for 1983. Now there are some keyboards on here, some synths, because that keeps coming up because it is 1983. Weird synth solo on the Thunder and Lightning song, and really sad kind of track at the end called Heart Attack, where it's like, Mama, I'm gonna have a heart attack. I'm gonna die. I feel like I'm dying. Or it's just like, man, because Phil Lynott did pass away a couple of years after this, and he did, you know, his mom did outlive him, and she's been in interviews talking about how sad the whole experience was, of course, you know, and yeah, I just always wondered what she thought of that song. Now, the song itself, I mean, if you get specific with the lyrics, it's about, you know, a woman broke his heart or whatever, but you can read between the lines and get some real life out of that as well. So, you know, this album does, you know, have some real emotion in there, as all the Thin Lizzy albums do, with Phil Lynott singing his incredible vocal style. And overall, like I said, music-wise, content-wise, lyric-wise, tops. But the mix on this is what I originally was getting ready to say. Is this thing supposed to sound like this? This is mixed so bizarrely. It's like got this kind of really shimmery, kind of glassy, kind of complete lack of mid-range mix, where there's high ends that are definitely like just shimmering, and it's got this major compression that just buries a lot of the instruments in this kind of like, I won't call it a wall of sound, it's more like a mattress of sound, because it softens a lot of stuff up. The first track, Thunder and Lightning, it took me I'm like, is this Thin Lizzy? It doesn't even sound really like them. Which, of course, you know, a lot of these bands get into the 80s, you know, 83, and they don't sound like they sounded in the 70s. They got that really earthy, great, awesome, really earthy 70s classic rock sound, and they don't do that in 1983. But this just goes overboard with it. I mean, the sheen on this mix is just like, again, I wonder if it is actually supposed to sound like this, or if it's just this CD. So if you have a vinyl version of this, or maybe you have a UK pressing of the CD, let me know if it still sounds like that. Now, the most, you know, egregious, you know, example of that is the first track. It's not as bad as the album goes on. It seems like they've backed off that mix a little bit, backed off the compression, brought up the mid-range just a hair. You know, but that first track is just like, what is that? Do I need to readjust something? Did I accidentally like hit like a, you know, like switch off a EQ or something? I don't know, but no, didn't. It sounds like that. Played it on this, streamed it, And the stream sounds the same way. So I don't know. A lot of times the stream will just be identical to the CD anyway. So I'm really curious if you have the album of this, like the record, does it still sound like that, or should I, really, really try to get that record? Because like I said, I've got all the Thin Lizzy records except for this one. Had to settle for the CD of this. But yeah, Thunder and Lightning from Thin Lizzy. If you can get past that mix, it's a gem, but because it does sound like that, and it is kind of off-putting in places, and you're like, man, it's frustrating because you're like, man, if this would just been mixed better, it would just be so much better. I got to give it, 4 stars. But 4 stars is a decent way for Thin Lizzy to go out. But yeah, if you're looking for something that sounds as great as some of their 70s stuff, this doesn't really compete as much with that. But, it is 1983, and there are 70s hard rock bands that did a lot worse. That's for sure. Some of my musical taste has changed since 1983 when I was 10 years old. Some of it has not. I mentioned how 1983 was the year, the summer that I really started making a full effort to get into current popular hit music, which I had not done before, with the exception of K-Tel albums. And, listening to the countdowns, writing down every song, putting my little rating next to it. Similar to the exact same thing I'm doing now. My life really doesn't change. And so I remember there were 3 songs in that little summer that I really hated. Mr. Roboto, which we've already talked about. Making Love Out of Nothing at All from Air Supply, which I don't really hate anymore. I kind of get what it is now with the whole Jim Steinman thing and whatever. It's kind of kitschy now. I won't really be talking a lot about that song because it's from Air Supply Greatest Hits. It was like a new song on the Greatest Hits album, so I'm not doing Greatest Hits album, so probably be the only time I mention that song. And the third song I really hated was True from Spandau Ballet, the title track from their album True, Spandau Ballet. And I don't really hate that song anymore. I just kind of feel sorry for it now more than anything. It comes on and I'm like, oh, that's too bad that, that group has to go through life doing that song. I don't know if they're still together. They probably play those 80s tours or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, so it's Spandau Ballet. They were basically a one-hit wonder in the United States with that song. And it was on all the time. It's kind of been forgotten about now. It doesn't really get played a lot in the last, in the 2000s. It's kind of a relic of the 80s. I know they probably have other hits in other parts of the world. The UK, I'm sure they have other things going on. But here it's all about the song True. I think it was later sampled for some hip-hop song. But never cared for that. I'd listen to it again for the first time in a long time. It's at the very end of this album. And it's 6.5 minutes long on the album. It's like, oh my God. I know this much is true. It's like, just stop, guy. Come on. And he doesn't stop. It goes on, like I said, for 6.5 minutes. Terrible. But, I don't get enraged by it. I just kind of I'm sad for it. The rest of the album, I'm finding out, is just as bad. It's this kind of bland, soulless, kind of synthy pop, light rock kind of stuff. Some of it is upbeat, but not necessarily energetic, or, it doesn't have any feeling to it. This guy tries to have the kind of operatic vocals sometimes, but he just comes off as Vegas-y. Doesn't do anything for me at all. There's a song on here called Communication that's kind of okay. I think I might have heard that a few times. Maybe that was a single for a little while that flopped or something. It's kind of there. It's probably the best thing on the album, and it isn't even that great at all. There's a song called Lifeline. And you'd think that would be upbeat, all right, pop music. This is fun and quirky. No, it's nothing. And then there is a song on there that is so bad, it's actually funny. There are songs that are horrible that actually I get enraged when I hear them. They're just like, God, this is awful! This song is so bad, it's actually unintentionally humorous. It's a total crack up. You got to check it out. It's called Gold. And I believe this was a hit in the UK. It wasn't anything in the US. But it's on this album. It's called Gold. And it sounds like a deodorant commercial. I mean, it's this whole thing where it's like, gold, you've got the power of gold. You're indestructible, gold. You know, it's like who is? It sounds like I said, like a deodorant. Like, you know, right guard, gold. Now with maximum protection that lasts up to 18 hours. Because you've got the power. You are gold with right guard, gold. You're indestructible. The new gold from Right Guard. Available now at Walgreens and Revco. Go for the power of gold. I mean, I can totally see hear like a voiceover in front of this song. It's absolutely ridiculous, and if you've never heard it, you got to check it out. It's almost enough to get this to 2 stars based on like a B movie kind of unintentional humor type of thing, but I can't do it with that True song. No, True's still going to bring this down 1 star. I've finally heard the whole album. I'd never heard it before. I had no reason to want to hear it before, but I do these things for you. And because I'm a completist, I want the full picture of 1983. Okay, well, not the full. We don't need to get crazy with really bad stuff. But just wanted to hear what the rest of it sounds like. Now I know. 1 star, Spandau Ballet. I know this much is true. Also, on the 4th of March, another album was released that's at least a little bit better than the Spandau Ballet, thankfully. And that is Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark and Dazzle Ships. This one is kind of like very uneven, kind of very. That really doesn't make sense now, does it? But yeah, it's uneven. It's got some nice songs on it. It's got some catchy stuff on here. It's kind of quirky. It's fun. You know, it's got the synth pop going on, but they're not doing a lot of love songs and, you know, party songs or whatever. Their lyrics are a little more interesting and a little more esoteric, I guess. They've got songs on here like Telegraph, which is spunky. You know, it's you know, it gets you dancing around the house doing the dishes. Genetic Engineering is another one that's you know, kind of fun and whatever. So there's nice melodies on here that, you know, they've got some good stuff going on. But the issue with this is they've got a lot of just seemingly random sound bites and beeps and bloops and things that don't really matter. Usually when bands do things like that, especially with the sound clips and whatever, like Pink Floyd or Radiohead, it actually goes with the music or blends with it or makes a point or there's a reason. It sounds like there's a reason it's there. This, though, it doesn't really sound like there's a reason. It just sounds kind of like what we could do without all of this. Reminds me of The Who and The Who Sell Out. With that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. It's like, okay, there's 7 days in the week and these are them. What are we doing? This one starts off with fanfare for Radio Prague. Sounds like you know, maybe the Radio Prague has this as a sweeper or something. I'm not sure why it's in this album or why it starts it. It seems completely unnecessary. You've got Time Zones, another song where it's just all this like radio chatter, I think mentioning the time or something like that. You got another one, ABC Auto Engineering, which is just somebody counting 1, 2, 3, ABC 1, 2, 3, ABC. I'm just annoyed. That's all that's going on there. I'm annoyed. I'm not intrigued. I'm not like, ooh, wow, this is taking me to another. But the computers are taking over and it's part of the plot or what. I'm just annoyed. And so I think if they would have just ditched that whole thing and just come up with a couple of more actual songs, this would be a much better album. Because there's decent songs on here, like the ones I've mentioned. Silent Running is another one. It is not the Mike and the Mechanics Silent Running that comes later. That's in the future. But yeah, nice melodies on here. They know what they're doing with the computer programming, the synths and whatever, and the sequencing and all that. It is Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, and no, it does not have If You Leave. That's the one song that the U.S. knows, pretty much, If You Leave. But yeah, not 3 stars, basically, for this album, because it's just the annoying... They got a song on here called International that starts off with this harrowing thing about this girl whose hands have been cut off by like a wartime type of thing or whatever, you know, held hostage or something with the hands cut off, and then it goes into this like beep beep bop boop Casio keyboard type of thing. The song is called International. I don't need that. If you're going to do a song like that, you're going to have to treat it a little more seriously than that. So yeah, 3 stars for this overall. It's got its moments and then it's got its other moments. On March 11th, 1983, the band Kix released their second album called Cool Kids. And I had not heard this one before, but man, it blew my mind. I don't know if it blew my mind in a good way. It blew my mind in an absurd way. This album is absolutely ridiculous. It's so much fun, but I don't know if they intended it to be fun in the way that it is. It's like watching an old B movie or something. Like, how did this get made? The whole thing about this album is it's so childlike. It's so kiddie. And, I talked about like when the rock bands in the early 90s started pushing their music on younger and younger audience, like Def Leppard's Adrenalize, and I said how it sounded pitiful doing that as grown men, But that's a band like Def Leppard at that point who's had worldwide success and all these great, albums that sold millions and millions, whatever. Then they turn around and do stuff like that. Other bands did it too. But Kix is doing this in 1983, and they're doing it on only their second album. And they're going way overboard with it. The album starts off with a song called Burning Love. No, it is not an Elvis Presley cover. It's a different cover. And it's just got, right away, the keyboards on that are just super silly. Super silly, cheesy keyboards bopping along. You got other tracks on here like, get your monkeys out. Just go wild, kids. Come on, get your monkeys out. And just crazy. Big Mouth, Mighty Mouth is another one. But Mighty Mouth, you got your big trap and these Mighty Mouth doing some big talking, and nothing sounds sleazy or sexy or provocative or, none of that on here. This is not the kind of stuff we're talking about. This is very, very early glam metal, and I don't think they know quite how to approach it yet. Of course, later on, in the year, bands like Quiet Riot would kind of start paving the way for that and go, here's what you want to do. You want to move it more in the Van Halen type direction. Less sounding like you're playing a kid's birthday party or something. These guys are over the top, man. You got to check this album out and just laugh along. That's all you can do is just laugh at a lot of this. And the main thing is while they're singing all these silly songs like, put your nice on ice. Just come on, put your nice on ice. And the best one is the title track, Cool Kids, where it's, we're looking for the cool kids. Hey, let me borrow that cigarette. Searching for the cool kids. Now, the reason I'm thinking like that is because the lead singer of Kix at this point has what's called an interdental lisp. It's the kind of lisp that Cindy Brady had. And it makes him sound like even more of a child singing this childish music. And I don't know, because I don't remember him having that lisp in later Kix albums, because I've heard though like Blow My Fuse and the Cold Blood song and all those later Kix albums, Hot Wire and all that. I don't remember that, and he doesn't seem to be doing it in every song on here. He really does it in the title track, like I said, Cool Kids. So I don't know if he's pretending to have that lisp. It kind of comes back in other songs though on here, but it's not in every song. But that just makes it sound more like, hey, we're just a bunch of kids. And we're just got our guitars and we're just rocking and we're singing about silly stuff. Yeah, there's a song on here called Body Talk that I think was a single. I know it had a video where a bunch of women in like workout clothes are doing the aerobicizing in like a high school gymnasium. And then they just come in and just look at them and just like, oh, wow. And then get their instruments and start playing. But yeah, this is just absolutely ridiculous, and you got to check it out. I'm going to give it 3 stars because it's not, awesome hard rock, but it can't be ignored. I mean, you just got to check it out. Again, it's not pitiful like the later 90s, the early 90s stuff where the rock bands start singing for kids because they're trying to expand their audience, and they're, Def Leppard singing about, hey, cut your hair. No way, Dad. Take out the trash. Oh, come on, give it. I'm not into that at all. This is a band that just sounds completely like, hey, we don't know exactly what direction we want to go in. Let's sing for 10-year-olds. Kix, cool kids. They're searching for the cool kids. And I'm not sure they're going to find them with music like this, but best of luck. So when undertaking a huge project like this, rating and reviewing all of these albums from 1983 and trying to do it in exact chronological order from release date, there will be a couple of mistakes made here and there. That's kind of inevitable, especially when I'm just one person, researching all of this. And I did find out that the Tears for Fears album called The Hurting was released, on March 7th, which is where we are, 1983. But the U.S. version did not come out until the following month. I believe that was April 13th. So I am trying to go by U.S. release dates for all of these. But this one, I'm doing the UK release date purely by mistake. So, if you're going by US, this would actually be released next month. But anyway, I'm definitely, hearing this album all the way through for the first time. It's just another one of those albums where it's like, I always meant to get around to listening to it at one point, heard a lot of great things about it, always checking out, I'll get to it. And just, for whatever reason, just never did. But now I finally have actually listened to this 3 times. I really gave it a nice, full-on attention, deep listen at least once. And it's exactly what everybody was saying it was. A great album, pretty much consistently all the way through. It is obviously, I won't say obviously, but if you've heard about this album, it is true that it is very heavy-handed. Very kind of depressing in a lot of places. This is not fun, frivolous, upbeat 80s pop dance music, that is for sure. This is not, head over heels love song like they would come out with, on their next album, or even the upbeat music of Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I don't think a lot of people pay attention to those lyrics in that song, but it does start off with Welcome to Your Life, which is kind of a nice, nice sentiment. But there'll be none of that here. This is morose, just looking back, a lot of it, childhood memories of being, mentally abused or just sort of pushed away, or, for whatever reason, your childhood wasn't happy, and how that affects adulthood. Those are some recurring themes on this album. And as you can tell by the UK cover art, which I definitely prefer to the US one, I don't see this album anywhere. This is not one that you see a lot in the United States, and if you do, it is some sort of reissue with this cover art. So I definitely prefer this. I think this cover art really is more of like an art that shows what the album really is all about, with the child just, seemingly crying with its hands in its face and whatever like that, and just kind of, all almost in a fetal position. That's pretty striking stuff. The other one, the U.S. one with the 2 guys just standing overlooking the bay or whatever, that's everybody does, that kind of thing's everywhere. So not very special. The music on here, I think I was only familiar with the song Pale Shelter. That one, I always took that as being like a love song, for relationship type, adult relationship where, you don't give me love, you just give me pale shelter. Now, after hearing it in context with the rest of the album, I'm thinking it's probably more about a child and parent, or some sort of adult guardian relationship. So it's a lot more interesting when you think about it like that. But the album starts off with the title track, and it's just, it hurts to listen to these lyrics and to kind of get where they're coming from throughout. But the music is somewhat upbeat. There is that contrast that I like so much when you have the morose lyrics and the upbeat music, and it's sort of, sort of plays off each other. And, the contrast of that really works here. If it's done well, it's great, and it's done really well here. This does not sound like an album that is strictly 1983 synth pop type of stuff. Now, there are little flourishes where you can hear, okay, yeah, this is from the 80s, the drums every once in a while. But overall, this music sounds very contemporary. It sounds almost timeless, some of it. So it doesn't get trapped in that 1983 box where absolutely this is an 80s album, nothing but. It is quite nice how these gentlemen were able to sort of make a sound that still sounds somewhat relevant. It could have been released 5 years ago, with, again, a few little flourishes here and there that give away, yeah, this is definitely 1983. Mad World would be a song that, gives away the game, a little bit there. That's the second track on here. You have the song Suffer the Children, halfway through, as if you haven't caught on yet to what's going on. They're just going to start blatantly putting it in the title, Suffer the Children. You do have a song towards the end called Change, which is somewhat optimistic. There's a little bit of hope in that track, and it does have the upbeat music. But overall, this is a pretty heavy listen lyrically, and you have to be aware of that, ready for that, in the right mood for that. It does tend to sort of wallow a bit in that, and it can get a little bit, you know, especially when you're on Suffer the Children and once you're into like side 2, you're just kind of like, oh man, come on, you know, guys, rub some dirt on it. But yeah, these two, they have made an entire album of this pretty much, and it does start to wear on you after a while. So 4 stars overall for The Hurting. I wasn't familiar with this, you know, like I said at all. Maybe if I heard this back in the 80s and it gave me that nostalgia feel, I could rank this higher. But 4 stars I think is pretty good for how I feel about this album. Tears for Fears, I definitely prefer probably Songs from the Big Chair, because it, you know, as an American, it has the 3 big hits that we heard over and over and over and over on the radio. But it was probably this album that got the attention so they could do that album and fly off and become, you know, all over top 40 radio. So yeah, The Hurting from Tears for Fears. I'm glad I finally got to check this out, and yeah, I'll be listening to this again and again, I think, in the future, just to try to get a little more out of it. But right now, I'm giving it 4 stars. So I first heard of Bananarama, like a lot of Americans did, with the song Cruel Summer, and I had that self-titled tape back in 1984, so I know all the songs on that. Robert De Niro's Waiting, and you know, that was the other single and all that, but I had no idea that they had an album earlier than that until years and years and years later, and that is the album called Deep Sea Skiving. That was their debut that came out on the 7th of March, 1983, and finally got to hear that all the way through, and yeah, it sounds like Bananarama. It starts off with the song Shy Boy, very upbeat, very catchy, well-produced stuff on here, especially the first song. I'm assuming that was probably a single. It definitely sounds like a single type of song. But other tracks on here, you know, they've got their vocal style throughout. It's all 3 of them singing together. I don't think anybody ever takes a solo, but you definitely know it's Bananarama because it's those particular harmonies. So yeah, you get the Shy Boy to start it off. You get some fun stuff in here like Young at Heart, which sounds more like it's got a Motown beat going on. You get a little bit of 80s neo-disco vibe going on in some of the tracks. They got the Bo Diddley sound going on in a track called Young at Heart, you know, or I Want Candy, depending on which one you're more familiar with, the Bow Wow Wow cover of the Strange Love song from the 60s. And they do have that kind of 60s kind of vibe going on in a lot of the tracks here. They even do the doobie-doo, shoo-wop type of thing. They go to Motown on one song with the sound with Hey Young London. So there are different varieties of the pop music, early 80s pop style in here. They go a few different places, and like I said, it's produced really well. Whoever is behind this, and the musicians and everything, and the arrangements, done really well. And it's got the Bananarama distinctive vocals, which at the same time, like I said, do sound sort of, not, I guess anonymous is the wrong word. They just sound sort of aloof, I guess. Not very into it in some songs. Now they do get a little more morose in a couple of tracks, so they are somewhat, they have a lack of emotion throughout, but they have little tiny variances, I guess. They're on that one track with Fun Boy 3, who I just heard their whole album all the way through for the first time as well. So getting a chance to discover all of these 83 albums that I've overlooked, including Bananarama. This is fun stuff overall. Not anything that's blowing me away or anything like that. I didn't expect it would. I'm not a big fan of Bananarama's later stuff, the singles, the cover of Venus, or I Heard a Rumor. You know, I could take or leave those. I still love Cruel Summer. And seeing the video for that and getting the tape and all of that. But this one, the earlier one, wasn't familiar with any of these, and yeah, they're okay. You know, harmless kind of fun, but well done early 80s pop music. And I learned what skiving was. Had no idea. I thought when I saw the title Deep Sea Skiving, you know, years ago, I probably saw this for the first time in the 90s or whatever. I thought it was like a combination of the words scuba diving, you know, like, because it's deep sea. So they're deep sea scuba diving, deep sea skiving. But apparently skiving is some English slang word that means to, like, just blow off work and just, you know, go do something else, play hooky, basically. So yeah, deep sea skiving. At least I learned that, and I will give this 3 stars. Because like I said, it's nice, it's pleasant. You know, it's the Bananarama vocals, but it's not like, oh my God, over the top, crank it up kind of stuff. So I'm not super familiar with Nick Lowe. I've heard definitely, know who he is, and I know about his production. He produced the first Damned album. That's incredible. And a few of the other ones that he's produced along the way, but I'm not really super familiar with a lot of his own solo work. I mean, there's a song called Cruel to Be Kind that is somewhat popular in the United States. It's not like a big, huge hit or anything like that, but I think he's obviously a lot more popular in the UK, but not here in the United States. But he did release an album called The Abominable Showman in March of 1983, so I checked that out, listened to it once, and then read up on it just a little bit, and apparently this thing is not critically acclaimed at all. Critics are not kind to this, but I'm not really sure why. I listened to it again and had the same feeling I had the first time I heard it. It's a decent album. It's very pleasant. It's got a lot of variety in it. That's the main thing that I like about it. I always like albums where all the songs sound different, and he does go in a few different directions here. He's got the, he's got the power pop going on. He's got the pop rock kind of going on, a little bit of rockabilly in there and doo-wop kind of stuff. He's got the reggae song. He's got the your grandma likes it song, that kind of thing Paul McCartney used to do with the Beatles, where, you'd have that old grandma song on there. It's the final track on here called How Do You Talk to an Angel. Thankfully, it's not that song from that TV show in the early 90s. That thing is horrible. That's not what this is. But it is that little nice ditty kind of thing going on. He's got a song called Tanqueray. Sounds like a TV commercial. A really good a fun TV commercial, at least. I got tracks on here. The very first one's called We Want Action, and that puts you in the mood for, it's upbeat, get you pumped up. Yeah, woo! Nothing aggressive, though. This is not like hard rock or anything like that. Crank it up and party. This is just a very pleasant, nice listen for a Sunday afternoon. And like I said, the variety keeps it interesting. Got a song on here, clever lyrics like, for every woman that makes a fool out of a man, there's one that makes a man out of a fool. Got great songs on here with nice melodies, fully realized songs like Saint Behind the Paint and Wish You Were Here. Not the Pink Floyd Wish You Were Here. But overall, this album is pretty good, actually. I would give it more of a 3.5 stars, but I'm going to round it up to 4 stars because, everybody's beating up on this album and I feel I need to defend it. It makes me want to hear more Nick Lowe. I mean, I always thought Cruel to Be Kind was, okay. There's actually songs on here that I like more than that. So yeah, The Abominable Showman from Nick Lowe. I'm going to go ahead and give this 4 stars. And that is going to wrap up this video as we continue the long journey through 1983, chronologically rating albums and talking about them. And in the next video, I will continue March of 1983 as I review albums from Helix. Also, Lou Reed is in there, Marillion is in there, Laura Branigan, and others as well. So hopefully you will join me for that and continue my deep dive into 1983. I appreciate you watching this one so much. I'm Robert Fitton, and hopefully I will talk to you again soon.